Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Bible in 1 year for today, April 17th. And today we are continuing to read from the book of Ezekiel and also from the book of Hosea. And in Ezekiel, today we are reading about God's final solution to the Gog and Magog problem. So, Gog and Magog, we've been reading about them. They just sound evil, don't they? They sound like some kind of villain, some kind of monster that you might see in an Avengers movie. So, today we're reading about Gog and Magog. And in chapter 39, verses 1 through 6, it says this: "And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, This is what the Lord God says. Behold, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn you around, lead you on a rope, take you up from the remotest parts of the north, and bring you against the mountains of Israel. And there I will strike your bow from your left hand, and make your arrows fall from your right hand. You will fall on the mountains of Israel, you and all your troops and all the people who are with you. I will give you as food to every kind of predatory bird and animal of the field. You will fall in the open field, for it is I who have spoken, declares the Lord God. And I will send fire upon Magog and those who inhabit the coastlines in safety, and they will know that I am the Lord." So in my mind, I'm thinking, who are Gog and Magog? We've been reading about them. Why are they important? And so I did some research and I found out that Gog and Magog are also mentioned in Revelation, the apocalyptic final book of the New Testament. They are described in the final battle, the final judgment. This is the final defeat of Satan in his armies. Revelation 20, verses 7 through 9, we read again about Gog and Magog. It says this: "When the 1,000 years are over," this is the millennium, "Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth." And here it is, Gog and Magog. "And to gather them for battle. In number, they are like the sand on the seashore. They march across the breadth of the earth and surround the camp of God's people, the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them." So in Ezekiel, Gog is depicted as the ruler of Magog, and Magog is associated with distant lands, probably from the north of Israel. But in both references, Gog and Magog are sinister, they're demonic, they're associated with the forces of Satan himself. It's a mighty army seeking to destroy the people of God. And the first thing that struck me as I was reading about Gog and Magog in both these passages was the vast number of them. In Ezekiel, they're described as a horde, and in Revelation, it says the number of them is like the sand of the seashore. This is a huge, vast army. But the second and more important thing that God drew my attention to is that as powerful and as terrifying as this human army is in both accounts, God makes very, very short work of them. In Ezekiel, God disposes of them in just 3 short verses. He says, "I'll strike your bow from your left hand. I'll make your arrows fall from your right hand. You'll fall on the mountaintops of Israel, you and all your troops and all the peoples who are with you." And he talks about giving them as food to the birds, and it is I who have spoken, declares the Lord God. "And I will send fire upon Magog and those who inhabit the coastlands in safety, and they will know that I am the Lord." And in Revelation, the end of Gog and Magog is even swifter. The Lord dispatches of them in a single verse. He says, "Fire came down from heaven and devoured them." So the mightiest forces that can be summoned against God's people, a force so vast that it took the Israelites 7 months to just bury them, and so armed to the teeth that the Israelites burned their weapons for fuel for 7 years, is whisked away by God himself in a single breath. And it really made me pause to kind of reflect, what are the forces that are arrayed against us today? What are the seemingly insurmountable forces that come against the people of God today? And I immediately thought about the culture that we live in. This is a culture and a society now that is really no longer based on the biblical principles that we believe in. It's a culture that's not even really neutral anymore toward God, but instead we live in a world where the forces of the culture, the forces of our society are increasingly hostile to God and to his people. Just to give you a few statistics, that in 1900, there were about 28 churches for every 10,000 people in America. Today, there are less than 11. In fact, every day, 75 churches close their doors for good in America. And the growth of the atheist or agnostic or the nones segment of society has nearly doubled in America in the last 2 decades, from 11% to 21%. And it's not just America. The Pew Research Center reports that global hostility and aggression and restrictions against Christianity have risen in virtually every key metric around the world in the last 10 years. But even the weapons and the institutions arrayed against us they sometimes seem so formidable. There's the weapons of the media and political power structures, even the schools and higher education. A recent survey by a University of Texas sociology professor found that 59% of anthropologists and 53% of English professors would be less likely to hire someone they found out was a believer. And sometimes it just feels like the numbers, the resources that are arrayed against God and his people are so vast today, just like Gog and Magog all those years ago, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. But what I love about this passage is that God leaves no doubt as to where the real power, the real authority lies. Starting in verse 25, he says this, he says, I will restore the fortunes of Jacob. I will have mercy on the house of Israel. I will be jealous for my holy name. When I bring them back, then I shall show myself holy. Then they will know I am the Lord their God, because I made them go into exile against them among the nations, and then I gathered them again. And I will leave none of them there any longer. I will not hide my face from them, for I will have poured out my spirit on the house of Israel. There's no doubt who's in charge here. And I was reminded in this powerful passage that nothing has changed. That when I might be inclined to start to despair as the forces of the world are becoming more and more hostile to what we believe and the God we serve. But this verse and its sister verse in Revelation leave no doubt that whether we're recounting testimonies of how God delivered his people thousands of years ago or the victory to come, that the promise is still the same. Our God will deliver us. I love the words to that song, This Is How I Fight My Battles, where it says, my weapons are praise and thanksgiving, and that the object of our praise is greater than any enemy who dares to stand against him. So I hope you guys today have a great day, and that every single one of you is wielding the weapons of praise and thanksgiving to our undefeatable God today. Have a great one.